The Bigfoot of Walton County, by Charles John, Journal of the Fortean Research Center, Volume 4, Number 4. Between July and October 1987, sightings of a large, unknown hair-covered creature, presumed to be a Bigfoot, were reported in Walton County, Florida. The primary witness, a 13-year-old boy, encountered the creature twice, providing an extraordinarily detailed description. I first interviewed the boy's parents in December 1987, then met with the boy and his family in January 1988. The following is a documented account of his terrifying encounters. The first sighting occurred when the boy was walking along a clay road near his home. About 30 yards into the dense woods, he spotted the large, dark figure watching him. As soon as they made eye contact, both he and the creature turned to leave at the same time. The boy paused and could hear the heavy footsteps of the creature retreating through the forest. The second encounter was far more frightening and detailed. One afternoon, while searching for deer tracks, the boy sensed movement out of the corner of his eye. Standing just 10 feet away, separated only by a small bush, was the massive, human-like creature. The boy froze in terror, and eerily, so did the creature. It stood perfectly still, only moving its eyes slightly to look at the boy. The two remained locked in a silent standoff for several minutes. The creature was described as being 9 feet tall, with long reddish-brown hair, except for a distinct white blaze running from its throat to its groin. A white beard covered its chin, while its nose, ears, upper cheeks, palms, and soles were hairless and black-skinned. The nose was flat and wide, beginning between two dark, heavy eyebrows. The creature's eyes were brown like a hamster's, with no visible whites. Its forehead sloped back into a pointed skull. The creature's muscles were well-defined, particularly its massive biceps and chest, which resembled that of a bodybuilder. As fear overtook the boy, he began trembling and dropped his walking stick. The creature finally turned its head to fully face him, let out a low growl, and walked away into the forest. The boy watched as it strode up a hill, its powerful muscles flexing with each step. The hair-covered buttocks swayed, with a clear separation down the middle. Even at 50 yards away, the creature paused and looked back, and to the boy's horror, its cheeks lifted as if it were smiling before vanishing into the woods. Footprints and other clues. The family discovered two sets of massive footprints in the area, measuring 17.5 inches and 16 inches long. Each showed distinct toes, a defined arch, and a deep heel imprint. In one print, the fifth toe was separated slightly from the rest. The boy's mother later recalled seeing small trees twisted and broken, a phenomenon often reported in Bigfoot cases. Even more bizarre, while canoeing on a nearby lake, the boy's younger sister saw something massive rising from the water, but before their mother could see it, it was gone. Although the creature's identity remains unknown, the evidence suggests something very real was lurking in Walton County during those months in 1987. The Shadow on the Road. The December Sighting, by Donald M. Ware, Journal of the Fortean Research Center, Volume 4, Number 4. On December 5, 1987, a man known as TMB had a brief but chilling encounter with an unknown creature while driving down State Road 280 in Florida. The sighting occurred about 7 miles from the earlier Walton County reports. A sudden appearance. At approximately 7 p.m., as TMB rounded a curve, his headlights illuminated a massive, shaggy figure standing at the edge of the road. The creature was between 8.5 and 9 feet tall, with long brown hair covering its entire body. For 5 seconds, TMB had a clear view of the creature standing upright, as if preparing to cross the road. As the car slowed from 55 miles per hour to 45 miles per hour, the creature turned and swiftly retreated into the forest. Although the encounter was brief, TMB later sketched the figure. and his drawing closely matched descriptions from other Bigfoot reports in the area. Meanwhile, in Defuniak Springs, Florida, Dawn Smith experienced a terrifying and unexplained event. On October 1st, 1987, she returned home at 9 p.m. to find that something had attacked the parrot cage on her porch. The wire mesh of the cage had been crushed inward, with the doors forcibly bent open, even though they were designed to only open outward. Feathers were scattered everywhere. 3 parrots were found alive but injured, with deep wounds on their backs and their tails ripped off. Another bird was dead, its wings completely torn off. 2 birds were missing altogether. Strangely, reddish-brown hairs were found caught in the damaged cage, but no tracks or clear evidence could be linked to a Bigfoot. Although some investigators dismissed the attack as unrelated, the timing and proximity to the other Bigfoot sightings in the region raise serious questions. Could this have been a predator attack? Or something far more intelligent? In Skamania County, Washington, Bigfoot is more than just a legend. It's a legally protected species. During the 1960s, reports of Bigfoot sightings surged, leading to an unprecedented event. The county government passed an ordinance making it illegal to harm or kill a Sasquatch. In 1969, Skamania County passed Ordinance Number 69-01, which formally recognized the possibility of Bigfoot's existence. The law stated, whereas there is evidence to indicate the possible existence of a nocturnal primate mammal, commonly known as Bigfoot, Sasquatch, or giant hairy ape, any premeditated, willful slaying shall be punishable by law. Anyone found guilty of harming Bigfoot faced a $10,000 fine and up to 5 years in jail. However, in 1984, the penalties were reduced. The fine was set at $1,000, with 1 year of jail time. A town divided. Locals held mixed opinions on the law. Some saw it as a joke, while others believed it was a necessary step in case Bigfoot was real. A man named David, a dedicated Bigfoot researcher, claimed to have seen the creature multiple times and collected fur, tracks, and eyewitness accounts. Though many dismiss him as eccentric, David remains one of the last true believers, determined to protect the legend, and perhaps the creature itself. The Shadow of Another World by Richard D. Seafried, Journal of the Fortean Research Center, Volume 4, Number 4. Bigfoot sightings and strange occurrences have long been a part of Native American folklore and modern-day reports alike. A Foul Stench in the Forest, 1964. The first encounter was not visual, but rather olfactory. While hiking in the Olympic National Park rainforest, I was suddenly overcome by an overwhelming stench. A mixture of rotting meat, garbage, and something worse. The source of the smell seemed to be a cave entrance several feet above me, but I saw no sign of an animal. At the time, I dismissed it as a bear. But years later, when newspapers began reporting Bigfoot sightings in the same area, I started to wonder, could the awful smell have been something else? More than a decade later, I was hiking up Steen Mountain in Idaho when I encountered something that defied explanation. As I made my way across a steep meadow, a deep, chest-rattling roar echoed up from the valley below. It was unlike anything I had ever heard before, far more powerful than any bear or mountain lion. The roar sent chills through my body, reminding me of stories of circus gorillas from the 1940s. 2 days later, my supervisor confirmed that U.S. Forest Service employees had reported a terrifying encounter in that same area. A man I interviewed, Troy, described how he and a coworker had stopped at Wagon Hammer Springs at 2:30 a.m. to get a drink. As soon as his friend stepped away from the truck, he screamed in terror. When Troy ran to his aid, he saw nothing, but heard large, crashing footsteps retreating into the forest. His friend was in shock, insisting that he had come face to face with a massive ape-like figure sitting on a boulder watching them. In July 1985, I was hiking with my wife and daughter in Glacier National Park. The trail had been dusty and dry for days, but after a light rainfall overnight, the ground was damp, perfect for spotting fresh tracks. That's when I saw it. A single, perfectly defined footprint. It was larger than my booted foot and clearly human-like, complete with 5 distinct toes and a well-formed arch. But what made it chilling was its placement. The footprint was crosswise on the trail, suggesting that whatever made it had stepped once and then vanished into the forest. My daughter refused to look at it and my wife quickly dismissed it, but deep down, I knew that something had walked this trail before us. In August 1987, while working in Crater Lake National Park, Oregon, I finally saw the creature with my own eyes. It was just past midnight, and I was driving down a dark, empty road when something moved into my headlights. For a split second, I saw it, a tall, fur-covered figure with exaggerated arm movements striding gracefully across the road. Before I could react, it vanished into the darkness. The next morning, another park ranger approached me. She was visibly shaken. "Last night," she said, "I sat outside my cabin with my dog, looking out over the moonlit valley. Suddenly, I heard massive branches breaking and logs being thrown down by the creek. Her dog, which normally reacted to any movement, stayed completely still. When she described the exact location of the noises, my hair stood on end. It was the same area where I had seen the creature disappear. Could it have been a coincidence? Maybe. But after decades of strange experiences, unexplainable footprints, and terrifying sounds, I had finally come to a conclusion. Something was out there, and that something was watching us. Camping out in Bigfoot's backyard, an intrepid daily Nebraskan reporter-photographer team explores the wilderness for evidence of the elusive creature. By Bob Nelson, Journal of the Fortune Research Center, Volume 4, Number 4. By now, Dan Messias has told his story hundreds of times, and he remains the only one who truly knows whether it's real. It was a snow-covered night on March 28, 1987, in Green Mountain Falls, Colorado. At 11:45 p.m., Messias looked out the second-story window of his home and saw something impossible. Two creatures, one about 6.5 feet tall, the other much smaller, were running down Hondo Street. Messias recalled, "Dan Messias." It was dark, but the track lighting from my house lit the snow-covered road. Both creatures ran on 2 feet, their long arms swinging. They were covered in long, brown hair. Messias and his son Jeff rushed outside. What they found chilled them even further. 2 sets of footprints in the snow. He took photographs of the prints, which showed large, man-like feet with 4 claw-like extensions from the heel. Even stranger, the snow around the prints was melted, as if the creatures were warm-blooded. Investigating the mystery. I first learned of Messias' story from a Rocky Mountain News article. The case had even attracted the attention of Bob Brienzo, a Bigfoot researcher and professor from Houston. Brienzo was intrigued but came to no firm conclusions. As a realist, I was skeptical. I figured that photographer Eric Gregory and I would find a loon, a mountain recluse who had simply imagined shadows running down the road. Instead, we found something we couldn't explain. A case that won't go away. We weren't the only ones taking Messias seriously. LSU physiologist Vaughn Langman had researchers at LSU's Museum of Natural History analyze the footprints. They could not match them to any known North American species. Brienzo himself admitted that the prints didn't match typical Bigfoot tracks. If someone were hoaxing them, they did a poor job. Messias seemed normal, friendly, and had nothing to gain from telling his story. We arrived at Messias' isolated 3-story cabin in the heavily wooded ridges above the village. Dan greeted us warmly, looking uncannily like Wayne Newton, with his tall black hair and mustache. He led us upstairs where he had meticulously documented his sightings, with photos, newspaper clippings, and personal notes. His wife, however, was frustrated. "Mrs. Messias, I'm tired of not knowing what the creature is. Researchers come and promise answers, but no one ever figures it out. I just want to know what's been coming around our house." The most intriguing sightings had occurred within 200 yards of Messiah's home. A heavy animal path ran just 50 yards past the house, leading into the isolated Pike National Forest. Dan had seen human-like tracks there and smelled a heavy, musky odor, a stench like body odor mixed with decay. Then there was the break-in at the Dabler cabin. In July 1988, at 4 a.m., something broke through the screen porch door of the Dabler family's cabin, just 100 yards from Dan's home. 2 full trash cans were on the porch at the time. Ryan Dabler never saw what did it, but a week earlier, his mother had spotted a bear outside. However, when Messias and Brienzo investigated, they found about 100 strands of hair caught in the broken screen door. Messias gave samples to Unsolved Mysteries, which had them tested by Dr. Gerald Lowenstein at Pacific Presbyterian Medical Center in San Francisco. The results? The hair was similar to primate and human hair, but did not match either. Brienzo was shocked. He was convinced that the break-in was the work of a black bear, but the hair sample findings made that assumption uncertain. Ryan Dabler remained unconvinced. Ryan Dabler, I don't care about this creature stuff. It was definitely a bear, but Messias disagreed. Another incident had been reported 2 years earlier, in the summer of 1986. A woman named Holly Johnson, staying in a cabin just 50 yards from Dan's, heard her tomcat screeching outside. She ran to the door, only to see a cloud of cat fur and a large ape-like creature running into the forest on 2 feet. She later described the event on national television. By now, Eric and I were unsettled. We decided to hike into the Pike National Forest to search for wetland regions above the village. Brienzo had said that spores found on Messias's hair samples could only have come from a marshy area, and this was the only one for miles. We weren't thrilled about what that implied. It meant that whatever left that hair had been living there. That night, we camped deep in the forest, setting up a Bigfoot trap, a pile of rotting cucumbers, oranges, ravioli, and chili. At 12:30 a.m., Eric froze. Eric Gregory, shut up, did you hear that? Rustling sounds came from the trap. We grabbed our camera and flash and pointed them into the darkness. The flash burst like a lightning strike, burning a stark image into my retinas. What we saw was only shadows, but something had been there. We retreated back to the fire, shaken. In retrospect, we realized how dangerous it had been. We had been standing there armed, with guns in one hand and cameras in the other. What if something had charged us? Far deeper than our own. Weeks later, we sent the hair sample to Dr. W.H. Fehrenbach in Oregon. The hair's core structure did not match any known Colorado animal. It had a solid medulla, unlike human hair. Fehrenbach's response? Dr. W.H. Fehrenbach, sightings are a dime a dozen. What we need is video or a body, Brienzo agreed. Bob Brienzo. If this is all a hoax, it would be the biggest, most complex one in history. And Macias, he still isn't making a dime off his story. So what's the more logical explanation? As a journalist, I returned without a carcass, so I won't say it outright, but I think you already know. The stories above offer just a glimpse into the eerie encounters with Bigfoot. Whether a real, undiscovered species or a legend passed through generations, the mystery endures. From deep forests to lonely highways, sightings continue, fueling belief and curiosity. If you enjoyed these chilling tales and want more, please like and subscribe for more stories of the unexplained. Who knows? The next big sighting might be closer than you think.
Family reports strange ongoing activity near Greenville. Submitted by witness on Thursday, June 9th, 2016. Season spring. State, New Hampshire. County, Hillsborough County. Nearest town, Mason or Greenville, New Hampshire. Location, near Russell Abbott State Forest. Though I have never visually seen anything, a series of unusual events near my home over the last few years has left me searching for answers. Here are the incidents. 1. I have a small orchard bordering the forest behind my home. 2 years ago, a young pear tree bore fruit for the first time. about 20 to 30 pairs. I checked on them one evening and planned to pick them the next day. The following morning, every pair had vanished and all the branches that had held fruit were broken. Some of these branches were as high as 10 feet, meaning whatever took them had to be tall. Initially, I suspected a moose, though I wasn't aware of them eating pears. 2. One evening, about a year and a half ago, I walked home from my workshop in my barn. The night was pitch black, and as I passed a cluster of hemlock trees, an overpowering wet dog odor hit me. It had rained earlier that day, but the smell was so strong that I stopped in my tracks. I peered into the trees, but saw nothing. Though bears frequent the area, they usually move away from people, yet whatever this was remained completely still. I had an eerie sense of being watched. 3. A year ago, my wife and I were startled awake at 1 a.m. by the sound of a woman screaming in the woods. The scream was unnervingly loud, far louder than any human could manage. After it stopped, a pack of coyotes began yipping. Then the scream rang out again, followed by more coyote calls. This repeated several times before the woods fell silent. Years ago, we heard a similar scream in the daytime, but when we searched the area, we found nothing. 4. A few weeks ago, around 10 p.m., my wife, son, and I were in the living room when a rock struck the side of the house closest to the woods. It sounded like it was about the size of a large marble. When we opened the door, everything was silent. 5. My daughter visited recently and stayed for a week. She complained that she had trouble sleeping due to strange screams in the woods between midnight and 1 a.m. She said the screams sounded nothing like anything she had ever heard before and continued for 4 nights. On the 5th night, we stayed up to listen, but nothing happened. 6. Last fall, we looked after my daughter's small black lab. She usually loved exploring the field near the woods, but would sometimes refuse to go outside. She would sniff the air and back away from the door as if something was out there. 7. A few days ago, during the first 90-degree day of the year, I was driving along Route 31 near the Sasquatch River when I saw a large, 2-legged animal standing in the water. At first, I thought it was a bear, but its fur was a light cinnamon color and much longer than a bear's. It was massive, with fur so thick that I couldn't make out where its legs connected to its body. I should have stopped to look closer, but was in a rush. 8. Back in March, while walking a trail in the forest, I heard 3 distinct knocks on a tree. I knew from online reports that this is something Bigfoot is said to do. 100 feet further, I heard the knocks again. Not wanting to press my luck, I turned back. All of these experiences have left me wondering, what exactly is happening around here? Are there similar reports from southern New Hampshire? Environment: thick forest, swamps, lakes, and marshes. Family's possible nighttime encounter near Hancock, submitted by witness on Saturday, May 28, 2016, year 2016, season spring, month May, date 27th, state New Hampshire, county Hillsborough County, nearest town Hancock. At around 3 a.m. on May 27th, my wife and I were woken by a loud, distressing scream from outside our open bedroom windows. At first, I thought our dog was outside, but after the sound repeated, I woke my wife. She listened and confirmed she also heard it. I went to check on our dog, who was still inside, asleep in his kennel. As I reached the sliding door in our kitchen, my wife suddenly heard a series of hollow knocks coming from just outside our bedroom windows, something I missed while walking between rooms. When I turned on the back porch light and stepped outside, I heard a loud commotion in the tree line, about 150 feet away. My first assumption was a pack of coyotes, but then the situation escalated. Several trees began shaking violently from different spots in the woods. The hair on my neck stood up. Feeling vulnerable, I grabbed my shotgun and stepped onto our raised back deck, which sits about 6 to 8 feet off the ground. The noises persisted. Branches snapped, trees shook, and something large moved around with unsettling power. It was clear that whatever was out there had no fear of me. My wife joined me in the kitchen to listen through the open slider. Suddenly, as I turned off the porch light, we heard something rushing toward us. My wife panicked and slammed the door shut. I quickly opened it again, shotgun in hand, only to hear 3 deep, aggressive grunts right beside the deck. The sound was guttural and close, too close. Terrified, I shut the door. My wife ran to our baby's room while we both listened to whatever it was retreating into the woods. We could hear multiple heavy footsteps moving away. The next morning, we found pushed-over bushes near the deck and fresh, broken branches at the tree line. My wife later reminded me that our son, who sleeps in the basement, had mentioned seeing red eyes in the woods at night. At the time, I dismissed it, but now I'm not so sure. We have a compost pile in our backyard, which might have drawn whatever was out there. The experience left us shaken, and none of us slept for the rest of the night. Follow-up investigation. The witness, a lifelong outdoorsman, was clearly frightened by the experience. Though he didn't see anything, he described the tree shaking and noises as more intense than anything he had encountered before. He continues to monitor the area and will report any further activity. Environment: dense woods and lawn, near Carpenter's Marsh and Eva's Marsh Wildlife Management Area. A family sees Sasquatch at their window near Guilford. Submitted by witness on Wednesday, June 10, 2009, year 2008, season summer, date June 10, 2009, state New Hampshire, county Belknap County, nearest town Guilford, New Hampshire. Nearest road, Route 11A. I moved to this home in 2001 and have had multiple sightings over the years, always from my living room window while watching television. It sounds unbelievable, but it's true. My couch faces a large picture window that looks out onto a small creek and an empty wooded lot. I've seen all kinds of wildlife: deer, bears, moose, turkeys, raccoons, and foxes. But what I saw that night was something entirely different. On dark summer nights, usually late in the evening, a massive creature, around 9 feet tall, has walked past my window. It has long, deep brown hair and moves upright like a human. Sometimes I see it move in one direction, then pass by again minutes later. Other times, it simply disappears into the night. One evening, I casually mentioned to my family that I had seen Bigfoot again. My eldest son's face went pale. He confessed that the night before, he had seen the creature too. Only this time, it looked directly at him through the window. He described the same tall, broad-shouldered figure covered in dark fur, except he saw its face. He said the skin on its face was lighter than the rest of its body, though still covered in hair. We've heard eerie grunting noises, snapping branches, and heavy footsteps in the woods near our home. Though the creature has never acted aggressively, I refuse to step outside after seeing it. Instead, I turn on every outdoor light and try to forget it ever happened, until the next time. In the winter, we've found large, unidentifiable footprints circling the house. The snow often fills them in before we can examine them properly, but the size alone is unsettling. I know what I've seen, even if most people wouldn't believe me. Also noticed, strange noises, shadows moving through the trees, broken branches near the house. Other witnesses. My son saw it on a separate night. Another family member was sitting with me once, but just missed it. Time and conditions: between 10 and 11 p.m., dark and clear night. Environment: near the base of Gunstock Mountain, about a mile from Lake Winnipesaukee. A creek and river run about 1,000 yards from the house, surrounded by wetlands and dense woods. The White Mountain National Forest is nearby. Dawn sighting at Stevens Brook near Claremont, submitted by witness on Tuesday, June 7, 2016, year 2016. Season, summer. Nearest road, Route 120. At 5 a.m., I was traveling along Route 120 toward Claremont when I heard what I first thought was a flock of birds rustling in the reeds. As I slowed down, I saw a massive figure crouched low, peering through the tall grass at me. As I watched, the figure rose from a squat into a full standing position, turned away, and bolted toward the tree line. It ran at an incredible speed, using its long arms to push through the brush. Its head was coconut-shaped, and its fur was light brown. Its shoulders were incredibly broad. Later that day, I returned with a friend to investigate. We waded into the marsh, which came up to our knees, and were hit by an overpowering stench, something like rotting garbage. We found a single large footprint and what appeared to be a bedding area made of broken branches. When my friend performed a loud call, we received several distant wood knocks in response. A month later, while cycling on Route 120, I heard strange screeching noises coming from the woods in the same area. Other witnesses, none at the time, but a friend later accompanied me to investigate. Time and conditions: 5 a.m., dawn, clear weather. Environment: marshland transitioning into dense forest. A fallen tree near the sighting area resembled a sleeping spot. Follow-up investigation. Investigators confirmed the area contained bear and deer activity, but the witness was adamant that what he saw was not a known animal. A hair sample collected from a nearby fence turned out to be bear fur. The screeching sounds, recorded a month later, were likely from a fawn calling for its mother. Girl Scout camping trip disrupted in the Pine Barrens. Submitted by witness Susan G. on Sunday, June 29, 2014. Year: 1952 or 1953. Season: summer. Month: June. State: New Jersey. County: Burlington County. Nearest town: Chatsworth. Nearest road: Route 70. As an 8 to 10-year-old Girl Scout, I attended a camping trip in what is now Brendan T. Byrne State Forest, then called Lebanon State Forest. The campsite was remote, requiring a long hike after driving down a narrow, sandy road. On our first night, our counselors prepared a huge pot of spaghetti and meatballs. Before we could eat, the pot mysteriously vanished. No one saw it taken. As night fell, we sat by the fire. That's when the noises started. Heavy footsteps, loud rustling in the brush, and tree knocking. Then came the whistles, long, eerie, and not like any bird we had ever heard. These sounds circled our camp as if something, or multiple things, were communicating. The counselors, now frightened, called out to a Boy Scout troop camping across the lake. Their group hurried over, and together we listened as the noises continued. Everyone, kids and adults, was terrified. We stayed huddled near the fire all night. At dawn, the Boy Scout leaders ran back to their cars and contacted the police. As we left, the state police were arriving. Though nothing was ever found and the spaghetti pot was never recovered, we later heard stories of local farmers losing livestock, animals killed, dragged off, or left half-eaten. At the time, people blamed the Jersey Devil. But looking back, with what I know now, I believe it was something else. Something much bigger. Other witnesses: 20 Girl Scouts, multiple Boy Scouts, and their leaders. Time and conditions: around 11 p.m., clear night, full moon. Environment: dense scrub pine forest, cedar swamp, and a dark brown lake. Follow-up investigation: the witness later concluded that the incident was more likely caused by Bigfoot than the Jersey Devil. Locals had long reported strange occurrences in the area, including missing livestock and broken fences. Hunters experience intimidation encounter in Southampton Township. Submitted by witness on Monday, January 9, 2006. Year: 2001. Season: winter. Month: December. Date: doe season. State: New Jersey. County: Burlington County. Nearest town: Southampton Township. Nearest road: Route 70 and 206. During December's deer season in 2001, my 3 brothers and I were hunting deep in Bear Swamp, following a logging road off the power lines. We had planned to regroup once the woods became too dark to navigate. As we gathered near the road, an ear-splitting scream shattered the silence. Suddenly, something massive came charging toward us from the swamp, stopping just short of entering our flashlight beams. The ground trembled with each step. It was big. It continued its aggressive behavior, rushing at us in bluff charges, snapping branches, and growling with a deep, guttural intensity. The sheer volume of its roar cut straight through us, making it impossible to ignore. We saw in the distance a Bigfoot creature, so we raised our rifles, ready to fire if necessary. but the creature finally ran off through the trees. It mostly stayed just beyond our line of vision, yet its presence was undeniable. After what felt like an eternity, the creature slowly retreated, crashing through the brush as it left. Though I have hunted these woods for years, I have never experienced anything like this before or since. Other witnesses: myself and my 3 brothers. Time and conditions: after dark. Environment: the logging road sits on high ground, but a swamp is directly beside it. Late night sighting in Crosswicks, submitted by witness on Monday, April 4th, 2005. Year 2003. Season fall. State New Jersey. County Burlington County. Nearest town Bordentown, New Jersey. Nearest road Hogback Road. One fall night in 2003, my husband and I were driving home from Yardville, New Jersey, heading down Hogback Road toward Ward Avenue. As we rounded a bend, something ran across the road ahead of us. It moved upright but hunched over, using its long arms to propel itself forward. The creature was covered in thick, shaggy, dark brown fur and had an incredibly broad build. It was roughly 5 feet tall, though crouched, making it difficult to determine its full height. By the time we reached the spot where it had crossed, it had disappeared into thick brush. We did, however, see a dog standing nearby, barking in the direction the creature had come from. Both my husband and I saw it clearly, and neither of us could think of any logical explanation for what it could have been. It was too big and fast to be a raccoon or dog, and the way it moved was nothing like a bear. Other witnesses: myself and my husband. Time and conditions: between 11:30 p.m. and 1 a.m., clear night with good visibility from the moon and car headlights. Environment: a rural road with scattered houses, dense woods, and thick underbrush. Late afternoon sighting in the Pine Barrens. Submitted by witness on Monday, January 9th, 2006, year 2005, season winter, month December, date 27th, state New Jersey, county Burlington County. Nearest town Woodmansey, Chatsworth. Nearest road Route 72. My girlfriend and I were driving on a dirt trail off Route 72 when she suddenly froze, looking like she had seen a ghost. She said she had just seen something tall and light brown cross the road. Thinking it was probably a deer, I got out to take a closer look. That's when I saw movement in the bushes. As I turned my head, a face emerged from behind a dense pile of brush, staring directly at me. The creature's face was dark, but framed by long, light brown fur. Its eyes locked onto mine for a few seconds before it suddenly turned and ran. I caught only a glimpse of its body before it disappeared into the trees. My girlfriend was visibly shaken. She later told me this looked exactly like something she had seen months earlier while we were camping near Apple Pie Hill. Later that night, after leaving the area, we could hear something running toward our car from the woods. It wasn't galloping like a four-legged animal. It sounded distinctly like something running on 2 feet. Not wanting to push our luck, we left immediately. Other witnesses: my girlfriend saw it first. Time and conditions: around 4 p.m., clear and bright. Environment: Pine Barrens, dense forest, and brush. Researchers have early morning road crossing near Medford. Submitted by witness Eric Spinner on Tuesday, October 20th, 2015, year 2010, season winter, month March, date 18th, state New Jersey, county Burlington County. Nearest town, Medford. Nearest road, Route 206. A friend and I had spent hours in one of our Pine Barrens research areas, hoping to make contact with a Sasquatch. After an uneventful night, we packed up and began the drive home. At 1:10 a.m., we had just re-entered a developed area when something shot out from the right side of the road. I slammed on my brakes, narrowly avoiding hitting it. My friend, who was holding a water bottle, was thrown forward, splashing water all over herself. "What was that?" she shouted. "Deer," I blurted out in shock. But as soon as I said it, I realized that wasn't true. What I had seen had no tail, no muzzle, and no pointed ears. It was muscular, ran hunched forward, and pumped its arms for speed. Just before it disappeared, it turned its head to look at us, its face showing an expression of surprise, as if it had misjudged the timing of our approach. Shaken, I pulled over and returned to the spot, but there was no trace of it. Whatever it was, it had disappeared into the woods. Other witnesses, myself and a friend. Time and conditions: 1:10 a.m., dark, cold, damp environment, near power lines, wooded areas, lakes, and streams. Man sees tall, dark silhouette in Rockaway Township swamp. Submitted by witness on Monday, April 7th, 2003. Year 2003, season spring, month April. Date 7th, state New Jersey. County, Morris County. Nearest town, Rockaway Township. Nearest road, Interstate Route 80. Driving past Burnt Meadow Brook, I made a conscious effort to scan the wooded area beyond the road. About 200 to 250 yards away, I spotted what appeared to be a dark, human-like figure standing still, seemingly looking down at the water. The figure was tall, broad, and completely motionless. It was dark brown to black in color, but the distance made it difficult to discern fine details. I only observed it for about 5 seconds before I had to continue driving. Curious, I checked the same spot on my commute for several days afterward, but whatever I saw was no longer there. I considered the possibility that it was a tree trunk, but nothing in that area matched the shape I had seen. Could it have been a person? Possibly, but the location was difficult to access and far from any trails. Other witnesses, none. Time and conditions: clear day, morning rush hour, temperatures in the upper 30s. Environment: marshland transitioning into forest. A small creek runs through the area, connecting to undeveloped wooded regions, leading northward toward Pennsylvania and New York. If you've had a strange encounter of your own, drop it in the comments below. We'd love to hear your story. And don't forget to like and subscribe, because the next mystery might be closer than you think.
Welcome to this episode of Bigfoot Facts and Encounters, where we explore the terrifying and mysterious world of one of the most enduring legends in history. In this episode, we'll take you deep into the dark forests of North America, uncovering ancient folklore, modern sightings, and chilling first-hand encounters with the unknown. Disclaimer: the stories you are about to hear are based on real reports, but for dramatic effect, certain elements have been enhanced through special effects and storytelling. While the details remain rooted in eyewitness accounts, the dramatization is meant to bring these eerie experiences to life. Invitation to the unknown. So sit back, turn down the lights, and prepare yourself for a journey into the unknown, where something massive walks among the trees. And sometimes, it gets too close. Deep in the vast, untamed wilderness of North America, something stirs. A shadow moves between the trees, its massive form barely visible in the dim light of dawn. The forest holds its breath. A snap of a branch echoes through the stillness. And then, nothing. Just silence, as if the creature, whatever it was never there. The many names of Bigfoot. For centuries, stories of giant, hairy creatures have emerged from the depths of the wild. Some call them wild men. Others believe they are an undiscovered species. But to most of the world, this creature has one name: Bigfoot. The enduring mystery legends of an enormous bipedal being stretch across cultures, from the misty forests of the Pacific Northwest to the icy tundras of Siberia. Thousands of people claim to have seen it. Some say they've heard its eerie, bone-chilling howls. Others have found enormous footprints left behind in the mud. Yet despite the stories, the sightings, and the countless investigations, no definitive proof has ever been found. Is Bigfoot real? Or is it a figment of human imagination, a legend woven from ancient fears of the unknown? Today, we embark on a journey into the past, through history, folklore, and modern evidence, to uncover the truth about one of the world's greatest mysteries. Long before the name Bigfoot existed, Indigenous tribes across North America spoke of a being that roamed the wilderness. To some, it was a guardian of the land, an ancient protector of nature. To others, it was something more sinister, a creature that lurked in the shadows, watching, waiting. Names across cultures. The salespeople of British Columbia called it Sasquatch, meaning wild man of the woods. The Iroquois told tales of the stone giants, massive, hairy beings that roamed the mountains, sometimes stealing livestock, sometimes taking people. The Lakota spoke of the Chiatanka, a mysterious ape-like figure that left massive footprints in its wake. Similar accounts. These stories were not isolated. Across the continent, tribes shared eerily similar accounts. Tales of tall, man-like figures covered in thick fur, walking upright through the forests, their eyes glowing in the night. Global myths. Even outside of North America, myths of wild humanoid creatures have persisted for centuries. In Nepal, stories of the Yeti, also known as the abominable snowman, have fascinated explorers for generations. In China, ancient writings describe the Yeren, a towering beast of the forests. The stories are so widespread, so deeply ingrained in history, that many wonder, could they all be describing the same creature? Early settler encounters. Then, as European settlers arrived in North America, they too began recording encounters with something large, something unknown. Newspaper report. In 1818, a newspaper in Exeter, New York, published a report of a massive, hairy creature seen walking near a wooded area. The witness described it as a giant covered in dark hair, taller than any man, with eyes that glowed like embers in the night. Miners and trappers. In the mid-1800s, miners and trappers working in the remote forests of the Pacific Northwest spoke of encountering creatures unlike anything they had ever seen. In one account, a group of men reported finding enormous footprints in the snow, stretching for miles along a frozen riverbank. The prints were deep, indicating incredible weight and far too large to belong to any known animal. The legend takes hold. As these stories spread, curiosity grew, but it wasn't until the 20th century that the legend of Bigfoot truly took hold. The year was 1958. Deep in the forests of Northern California, a construction crew working in the remote wilderness of Bluff Creek made a discovery that would change history. In the soft dirt surrounding their work site, they found massive footprints, far larger than any humans. The prints measured 16 inches long and appeared unnervingly fresh. Initial reactions. At first, the workers dismissed them as a prank, but as the days passed, the footprints kept appearing, sometimes accompanied by eerie sounds in the night, deep, guttural howls that sent chills down their spines. The journalist. A local journalist named Andrew Genzoli picked up the story, publishing an article in the Humboldt Times about the mysterious prints. He jokingly suggested they might belong to a relative of the abominable snowman. But what started as a lighthearted piece of local news quickly spiraled into something bigger. Letters began flooding in from people across the country, all claiming to have seen something similar. The birth of Bigfoot, and then came the name. The crew working at Bluff Creek began referring to the unknown trackmaker as Bigfoot. The term stuck, and before long it became a household name. The debate begins. But what was leaving the tracks? Some believed it was simply a hoax, perhaps a man-made prank meant to stir up attention. Others were convinced it was something real, something beyond human understanding. The debate had only just begun. Nine years later, in 1967, the most famous piece of Bigfoot evidence in history was captured on film. Roger Patterson and Bob Gimlin were horseback riding near Bluff Creek, the same area where the mysterious tracks had been found. Patterson had long been fascinated by the legend of Bigfoot, and he carried a camera with him, just in case. More than 50 years have passed since that fateful day, yet Bigfoot sightings continue to this day. Thousands of reports have emerged from across the United States, particularly in Washington, Oregon, and the Appalachian Mountains. Hunters have reported hearing eerie howls in the dead of night, sounds unlike any known animal. Campers have claimed to see massive, shadowy figures lurking just beyond the tree line, watching, waiting. Hikers have stumbled upon enormous footprints in the mud, their size and depth far beyond human capabilities. Yet despite countless investigations, no definitive proof has ever been found. Scientists remain skeptical, arguing that without a body or clear DNA evidence, Bigfoot cannot be considered real. But believers argue that the vast, untouched wilderness of North America could still be hiding secrets we have yet to uncover. For decades, the Sierra Nevada mountains have been a hotspot for Bigfoot sightings. Towering peaks, dense forests, and remote valleys create the perfect environment for something large and undiscovered to remain hidden. But in the 1980s, two encounters sent chills down the spines of those who dared to venture into these woods, encounters that remain unexplained to this day. In the summer of 1980, a group of experienced hunters set up camp deep in the Sierra Nevada mountains. The location was isolated, miles away from any roads or towns, accessible only by foot or horseback. They had been hunting in this area for years, but this trip would be unlike any other. On their second night, strange sounds echoed through the trees. Deep, guttural grunts, unlike any known animal. At first they thought it might be a bear, but as the night wore on, the noises grew louder, more distinct, almost intelligent. Then the footsteps started. Heavy, deliberate steps circled their campsite, slow and measured, as if whatever was out there was studying them. The men grabbed their rifles, their campfire casting eerie shadows against the towering pines. And then they heard it, a terrifying, inhuman scream that sent shivers down their spines. It was deafening, primal, something they had never heard before. It seemed to come from multiple directions at once, as if more than one creature was surrounding them. Then, the footsteps changed. Whatever was out there started running, charging toward the camp. The men fired their weapons into the darkness, hoping to scare off whatever was approaching. But just as suddenly as the chaos began, it stopped. Silence fell over the forest. No more footsteps, no more screams, just the crackling of their fire and the pounding of their own hearts. At dawn, they found massive footprints surrounding their camp, each one nearly 20 inches long. The tracks weren't human, they weren't bear prints, and they were fresh. Whatever had been there that night had gotten incredibly close. Too close. The men packed up and left immediately. None of them ever returned to that hunting ground. To this day, the Sierra Camp incident remains one of the most chilling Bigfoot encounters ever reported. In February of 1986, a lone backpacker named Daniel Whitaker set out for a solo winter trek through the Sierra Nevada. An experienced outdoorsman, he had planned a week-long journey through the snowy mountains, seeking solitude and adventure. But on his fourth night, he realized he was not alone. As he sat by his small fire, sipping coffee and listening to the crackling embers, he became aware of an odd silence that had fallen over the woods. The wind had stopped. The usual rustling of nocturnal animals was gone. It was as if the entire forest was holding its breath. Then he saw them. A pair of glowing red eyes, staring at him from the darkness beyond his campfire. They were high, at least 7 feet off the ground. The eyes didn't blink. They just watched. Daniel froze, his breath visible in the frigid air. Slowly he reached for his flashlight and shined it toward the eyes. The moment the beam landed, the creature let out a low, rumbling growl, so deep he could feel it in his chest. The silhouette was massive, broad shoulders, long arms, a head slightly conical in shape. Then it moved. The figure stepped back into the darkness, vanishing beyond the firelight. For hours Daniel sat motionless, gripping his hunting knife, listening to the heavy, deliberate footsteps circling his campsite. Every now and then he heard low grunts, as if whatever was out there was communicating with something else, something he couldn't see. He barely slept that night, and when the first light of dawn crept through the trees, he wasted no time packing his gear and heading back down the trail. But even as he descended the mountain, he couldn't shake the feeling of being followed. Every so often, he would stop and listen, only to hear faint, distant footsteps mirroring his own. It wasn't until he reached his car, hours later, exhausted and on edge, that the feeling finally lifted. Daniel never returned to the Sierra Nevada, and to this day, he refuses to camp alone ever again. The Sierra Nevada is a place of beauty and wonder. But for those who have encountered something lurking in its depths, it is also a place of mystery and fear. Were these men simply victims of their own imagination? Or did they truly encounter something beyond human understanding? Whatever the truth may be, one thing is certain: something walks in those woods. Something massive. Something watching. And if you ever find yourself alone in the Sierra Nevada at night, listening to the silence of the trees, you might not be as alone as you think. If you enjoyed this journey into the mysterious world of Bigfoot, please like and subscribe for more captivating encounters, chilling stories, and deep dives into the legend of the unknown.
If you love chilling Bigfoot encounters and mysterious creatures, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you never miss a new story. Shadows in the Bush, the Yowie Encounters of Australia. The ancient legends. Long before European settlers arrived in Australia, the Aboriginal people told stories of hairy men, tall, wild, and powerful beings that roamed the dense forests and mountains. That is, until the sightings began. (1849), a monster at Phillip Island. It was a crisp autumn morning when a group of early settlers in Victoria claimed they saw something they could never have prepared for. Near a still lake, half hidden by the dense reeds, a creature crouched, 7 feet tall, covered in thick, dark hair, and unlike anything known to science. The men, hardened by their rugged frontier life, froze. One of them, a hunter, raised his rifle. The crack of gunfire echoed across the water, but the creature moved faster than expected, disappearing into the underbrush with an eerie, guttural growl. When they rushed forward, there was no trace, no blood, no body, just the swaying of disturbed reeds and a lingering feeling of dread. The story spread quickly, but skeptics dismissed it as the ravings of frightened men. Yet deep in the Australian wilderness, something watched. Queensland's Springbrook National Park was a place of breathtaking beauty. Towering eucalyptus trees, winding trails, and deep valleys where few dared to venture at night. One evening, a group of schoolboys on an outing found themselves walking the trails as the sun dipped below the horizon. Among them was a young Bill O'Chee, a future senator, who would later recall this night as the moment he saw something that defied all logic. As they trudged along a narrow path, a towering, fur-covered figure emerged from the trees, silhouetted against the fading light. The boys stopped, unable to move. The creature was enormous, over 10 feet tall, its eyes glowing faintly in the dim light. Then it stepped forward, and the forest fell silent. For what felt like an eternity, the boys remained rooted in place, watching as this monstrous figure simply observed them. And then, as suddenly as it had appeared, it turned and vanished into the trees. O'Chee never forgot that night, and decades later he would tell the world that Yowies were real. Tim the Yowie Man, now one of Australia's most famous cryptid researchers, hadn't expected to have his own encounter. He was a skeptic, after all, until one freezing morning in the Brindabella Ranges. He had been hiking alone, the early mist swirling around his feet, when he heard something move behind him. The crunch of leaves, heavy breathing. Then, a low growl. He turned slowly, heart pounding, and locked eyes with a creature unlike any he had ever seen. Massive, covered in reddish-brown hair with an ape-like face and impossibly long arms, it stood barely 30 feet away. For a moment, man and beast simply watched each other. And then, it was gone, crashing through the trees with impossible speed. That was the moment Tim knew. The Yowie was more than just folklore. Technology had advanced, and so had the hunt for the Yowie. Two researchers, armed with infrared cameras, ventured deep into South Queensland's wilderness, determined to catch proof. After hours of scanning the thick bush, the camera picked up something, a figure, tall and broad, moving between the trees. It wasn't human. Its shape, its gait, the way it blended into the shadows, it was unlike anything they had seen before. The footage was later analyzed, debated, dismissed by skeptics and hailed by believers. But the researchers knew what they had seen, and they weren't the only ones. (2021) Terror at Moore Park Beach. The quiet shores of Moore Park Beach weren't known for monster sightings, but for one terrified family, that changed in an instant. It was supposed to be a peaceful evening walk along the sand, the waves lapping gently at the shore. Then a deep, guttural roar shattered the night. They turned, and there it was. 9 feet tall with powerful arms and piercing eyes, the creature stood at the edge of the dunes. Then it moved toward them. The family ran, stumbling through the sand, barely making it back to their car. That night they couldn't sleep, because the howls came again, this time from the trees near their home. The next morning, they found the tracks, massive footprints pressed deep into the sand. (2025) A Chewbacca-sounding yowie in Litchfield National Park. The latest reports come from the Northern Territory, where visitors to Litchfield National Park describe hearing sounds that weren't quite human, but weren't quite animal either. A deep, resonating noise, like something straight out of Star Wars, a sound eerily similar to Chewbacca. Some dismiss it as a trick of the wind, others as just another unexplained bush noise. But for those who have heard the stories of the yowie, there is only one explanation. It's still out there, watching, waiting, and maybe, just maybe, ready to show itself again. Are the yowies real? The stories keep coming. The footprints are still found. The sightings, year after year, refuse to stop. Some believe the yowie is an undiscovered species, a relic from an ancient time, hidden in Australia's vast wilderness. Others say it's nothing more than mistaken identity, a myth passed down through generations. But for those who have seen it, for those who have locked eyes with the unknown in the deep forests of Australia, there is no question. The yowie is real. More sightings of Bigfoot have been reported across various states in the United States. Each encounter adds another layer of mystery to this elusive creature. Memorial Weekend, May 1981, Pierce County, Washington. The air was crisp, carrying the scent of damp earth and pine as 4 children set off from their campsite. The group, siblings and cousins, were restless after a morning of idling around the tents and decided to explore the creek that wound its way through the dense Washington forest. The sun filtered through the towering trees, casting shifting patterns of gold and green onto the forest floor. The creek babbled beside them, its waters shallow and clear, reflecting the tangled branches overhead. They followed a narrow dirt path along the northern side of the creek, the occasional rustle of underbrush, or the distant trill of a bird, the only sounds that accompanied them. It was peaceful, at first. Then came the rustling. At first they barely noticed it, a gentle shifting of leaves across the water, easy to blame on a breeze or a squirrel darting through the foliage. But as they continued walking upstream, the sound persisted, a steady, deliberate movement. They paused, straining their ears. The rustling stopped. One of them, probably the eldest, shrugged it off. Just an animal, they thought. Still, something felt off. They pressed on, glancing occasionally across the water. Then through the thick curtain of wild rose and ferns, a face emerged. It was there, just for a moment, a flash of reddish-brown, tangled hair, large golden-brown eyes that gleamed in the shifting sunlight. Then it was gone, swallowed again by the foliage. A stunned silence fell over them. "Did you see that?" someone whispered, but no one spoke. The fear in their eyes was answer enough. They moved faster now, stepping lightly over the damp earth, every muscle tensed. Another 100 yards, and the face appeared again, watching, observing, not chasing, not threatening, but keeping pace. Then another thought struck them. The creek ended ahead in a marsh. If they kept going, they wouldn't have the water between them and whatever was in the bushes. Panic set in. Without a word, they turned and ran, feet pounding against the ground, branches whipping at their arms as they hurtled back toward camp. The rustling grew distant behind them, but they didn't slow down until they burst through the tree line and into the safety of the tents. Gasping for breath, they spilled out the story to their parents, expecting to be dismissed, to be laughed at for their wild imagination. But there was no ridicule, only quiet, serious nods. They weren't the only ones who had seen something that weekend. When they returned home, newspapers from the past few days confirmed it. Others had reported a sighting near Alder Lake. Something had been watching them in the woods that day, and it wasn't alone. July 15th, 1982, Pierce County, Washington. The trip to Mount Rainier had started off as an exciting summer adventure. 13-year-old me, my mom, and I had traveled from Michigan to visit my sister in Snohomish, Washington for 2 weeks. She had planned a special day trip for us to see the famous ice caves and a mysterious wooden carving deep in the forest called the Maiden in the Woods. That morning we all piled into the car. Mom, my sister, my brother-in-law, my 2 nephews, ages 5 and 7, and me, and set off. The drive took us through the Washington countryside, a patchwork of lush valleys and farm fields. I noticed something strange as we passed through. Large wooden silhouettes standing in the fields shaped like tall, hairy figures. They reminded me of those decorative bear cutouts people place in their yards, except these were far larger, 7 or 8 feet tall. I leaned forward. "What are those supposed to be?" I asked. My brother-in-law chuckled. "Oh, the farmers put those out to ward off Sasquatch," he said. I laughed nervously, expecting him to be joking. But as we kept driving, I realized every farm had at least one, standing tall, facing the forest as if warning something away. Something about it unsettled me. These weren't decorations. They were there for a reason. Into the woods. We finally reached an overlooked parking area somewhere deep in the foothills of the mountains. My sister said the Maiden in the Woods was a carving made from an ancient redwood pine. It was supposed to be incredible, and she was excited for us to see it. We set off up the trail, sunlight dappling the forest floor as we climbed. When we reached the carving, though, disappointment set in. The Maiden had been vandalized, burned, and damaged beyond recognition. My sister sighed, shaking her head. It used to be beautiful. With nothing left to admire, we turned back toward the car. It was early afternoon, the sun still bright overhead. My nephews ran ahead laughing while Mom and my sister followed behind them. My brother-in-law and I lingered near the back of the group, walking at a slower pace. That's when he froze. He held out an arm, motioning for me to stop. I did. "What is it?" He didn't answer right away. His eyes narrowed, scanning the woods. "Just listen." I frowned but did as he said. The forest was mostly quiet except for the sound of something moving through the trees. A heavy step, a crunching branch. The soft thud of something sinking into the forest bed. It was keeping pace with us. We started walking again, our footsteps deliberately slow. The sound in the woods matched us, never getting closer, never falling behind. We stopped. It stopped. A sudden wave of unease spread through me. My brother-in-law looked at me, eyes serious. He knew I had heard it too. Up ahead, my mom and sister noticed we had stopped and turned around. "What are you guys doing? Come on, let's get going." My brother-in-law hesitated, then said, "I think we're being followed." My mom scoffed. "By what? One of those Sasquatch things from the farms?" She laughed until she saw our faces. "Yeah, just listen." We took a few more steps forward. Crunch. Thud. The footsteps in the woods started again. This time my mom's face went pale. My nephews had stopped laughing, suddenly aware that something wasn't right. That's when we heard the howl. The sound came from our right, deep within the dense trees. It started low like a wolf's howl, but it wasn't a wolf. It had a dual-tone quality, almost as if 2 voices were calling out at once, one deep and resonant, the other slightly higher, echoing through the trees. The sound vibrated through my chest, sending shivers down my spine. For a moment, none of us moved. Then my brother-in-law hissed, "Let's get walking, people!" We didn't walk. We ran. My nephews screamed as they bolted down the trail. My mom and sister weren't far behind. I didn't dare look over my shoulder. I didn't want to see what was making that noise. We burst out of the trees, reaching the car in record time. My brother-in-law fumbled for the keys, yanking the door open as we piled in, breathless and panicked. The moment the engine roared to life, he slammed it into reverse, kicking up dust as we tore out of the parking area. Even as we sped down the winding mountain roads, no one spoke for a while. The forest had gone silent, as if the thing that had been following us knew we were gone. Years later, when I listened to recorded Bigfoot vocalizations, something about them sent chills up my spine. The howl we heard that day in 1982, it was the same. The Footprints in the Wild. August 15, 1982, Pierce County, Washington. The Huckleberry Creek Training Ground was a remote, rugged expanse of wilderness, deep in the foothills of Mount Rainier National Park. It was the kind of place that tested a soldier's endurance, pushing them to their limits both physically and mentally. That summer, my squad from A Company 15th Engineer Battalion had been sent there for mountain training, a crucial component of our preparation at Fort Lewis. The final test of our training was called the Alpine Scramble, a grueling land navigation exercise designed to simulate real-world survival scenarios. The goal was simple: travel from point A to point B, solving various problems along the way. It was a test of our ability to navigate treacherous terrain, adapt to unforeseen obstacles, and work as a team under pressure. By the time mid-afternoon arrived, our squad had been hiking for hours. The overcast sky cast a dull gray light over the forest, the thick canopy overhead filtering what little sun remained. The air was heavy with the scent of damp earth and pine, and though it hadn't rained yet, the promise of it lingered. We finally came upon a stream, its waters rushing steadily over a rocky bed. It was the perfect place to rest and refuel, so we took off our packs and gathered near a sand and gravel bar that jutted out into the stream. Some of us knelt by the water, splashing our faces and filling canteens, while others tore into their field rations. Then someone noticed the prints. A discovery in the sand. At first, they seemed like nothing more than odd depressions in the gravel. But as we looked closer, the reality of what we were seeing began to sink in. The footprints were large, 14 inches long and 7.5 inches wide, far broader than any human foot we had ever seen. They pressed deep into the soil, far deeper than our own boot prints, even when we stomped down hard. This has to be a joke. But as we continued to study the tracks, the details became harder to dismiss. The stride between each print was at least 4 feet, much longer than any of ours. We even pulled out a tape measure to confirm it. Whoever, or whatever, had made them, had been moving with deliberate, steady steps. We followed the prints along the edge of the stream, tracing them as far as we could. Every now and then, a faint, partial print would appear, but after a short distance, they vanished. Had whatever made them stepped into the stream, or had it turned and disappeared into the forest? We had no way of knowing. The unspoken warning. We spent maybe 10 minutes inspecting the prints, but our squad leader was eager to move on. He insisted it was a prank, likely set up by our instructors to mess with us, but I wasn't so sure. Back at base camp, we sat through an after-action debriefing, going over the mission. As the discussion wrapped up, I brought up what we had seen. Before I could even finish, our squad leader shot me a sharp look, clearly annoyed. "Drop it." But I wasn't the only one curious. A few others in the squad backed me up, saying the footprints weren't something easily explained. That's when our instructor, a seasoned ranger cadre, leaned forward, his face unreadable. "Forget about it. Don't mention it again." His voice left no room for argument. That was the end of the conversation. No discussion, no speculation, just an unspoken agreement to let it go. But I never did. A lingering mystery. I left the army not long after, but that day never left me. I began reading about Bigfoot sightings, digging through books and online reports, trying to find anything similar to what we had seen. I never found another account that matched ours exactly, but I couldn't shake the feeling that what we stumbled upon that day at Huckleberry Creek was something real. Something that someone didn't want us talking about. Because I can tell you this, those weren't boot prints. Face to face with the unknown. May 11, 1983. Puyallup, Washington. The logging road was overgrown, its path cracked and softened by years of neglect. Spring had come to South Hill, Puyallup, and the air was thick with the scent of damp earth and blooming weeds. My friend and I, two elementary school kids, were making our usual trek home from Sunrise Elementary. It was a shortcut, one we had taken dozens of times before, cutting through a patch of woods nestled between gravel pits and power lines. We weren't in any hurry that afternoon. The sun hung bright and low, casting long shadows across the narrow path. Both of us carried sticks, swiping at the tall dandelions lining the trail, chopping them down like tiny warriors. My friend walked ahead, swinging at anything in his reach, while I lagged behind, taking care of the ones he missed. 20 feet separated us, but I didn't mind. That's when it happened. I had stopped for a particularly large patch of dandelions, focused on my stick as I hacked away at the stalks. Behind me, the ditch ran parallel to the path, a shallow trench overgrown with weeds and brush. Then came the feeling, a strange, unmistakable sensation, like someone was standing behind me, watching. Every hair on my arm stood up. My breath hitched. Slowly I turned around. I froze. Standing no more than 8 feet away, rising up from the ditch, was a massive figure covered in thick, reddish hair. My brain barely had time to register what I was looking at before sheer terror took over. It was so close, so unnervingly human, yet not human at all. Its shoulders were impossibly wide, its hair slightly matted, almost the same shade as an Irish setter's fur. The eyes were dark, or at least they looked that way. I didn't stare long enough to be sure. For a split second, we just stared at each other. Then I ran. I didn't think, I didn't hesitate. I just bolted down the path, sprinting past my friend without stopping. "What's wrong? Run!" Without questioning me, he took off right behind me. We ran and never looked back. My lungs burned, my legs ached, but we didn't stop until we reached home. It never chased us. It didn't need to. Even after slamming the door behind us, I couldn't catch my breath. My friend kept asking what I had seen, but I couldn't even find the words. That day changed me. Since then, I've read everything I could about Bigfoot sightings, searching for others like mine. And what I've come to understand is this. They are out there. I don't need proof. I already know. The Watcher in the Riverbed, May 1st, 2001, Fairfax, Washington. The afternoon was perfect. A crisp, clear spring day in the Carbon River Valley with blue skies stretching wide over the rugged foothills of Mount Rainier. My wife and I had spent the day riding bikes through the back roads with our 5-year-old daughter, weaving through the thick pine forests that had reclaimed the old logging roads. The ride had been peaceful, filled with nothing but the hum of tires on dirt and the occasional birdsong filtering through the trees. As we neared the end of our ride, we stopped at a high viewpoint overlooking the river valley below. It was one of those spots where the land suddenly drops away, revealing a breathtaking sprawl of riverbed, dense tree lines, and the jagged boulders lining the Carbon River. We stood still, just taking it all in, our bikes propped against a fallen log. The river wound through the valley, its surface glinting in the sunlight. The place had an untouched quality, as if the rest of the world had forgotten it. That's when we saw him. The man in the trench coat. At first, it was nothing more than a figure, moving along the rock-strewn riverbed far below us. My first thought was a man, maybe a fisherman, making his way along the water's edge. But something felt off. The way he moved, it wasn't normal. He strode effortlessly across the uneven terrain, stepping from boulder to boulder with an unnatural grace. No hesitation, no missteps. It was too smooth, like he was walking on a sidewalk instead of jagged river rocks. Then I noticed something even stranger. At first I thought he was wearing a long trench coat. That was the only way my brain could explain the dark shape I was seeing. But then I realized there were no folds, no fabric, no sleeves, just solid dark hair. Not a man. I blinked, looked again. There were no shoes, no cuffs. His arms swung long and natural, and the dark hair extended all the way to his fingertips. The so-called coat was actually his body. A rush of realization hit me all at once. That's not a man. Only 2 seconds had passed since we first noticed him, but it felt much longer. I turned to my wife, and at the exact same moment, she turned to look at me. Neither of us spoke, but we could see the same thought in each other's eyes. "Are you seeing what I'm seeing?" We turned back, just in time to watch him turn his head sharply toward us. It wasn't a casual glance, it wasn't slow, it was instant. Like he knew we were there the moment we questioned it. His dark eyes locked onto mine. He held my gaze. There was intelligence there, something deep and aware. Not just an animal catching movement. He was looking at me, studying me, and all the while he kept walking. I felt my breath catch in my throat, then he vanished behind a stand of thick pine trees that lined the river's edge. The moment he was gone, I turned to my wife. I think it's time to go. Yep, we didn't hesitate. We grabbed our bikes and took off, pedaling hard up the winding dirt road that led back to our car. My daughter, oblivious to what had just happened, laughed as she bounced along in her bike seat. Neither of us spoke the entire way back. It wasn't fear exactly. It was something else. That deep feeling that you've just experienced something you weren't supposed to. That moment, those few short seconds, stuck with me. Even now, 5 years later, I can still see his eyes, and I still wonder how he knew we were watching. What do you think? Are these just campfire tales, or could something truly be out there in the wilds of Australia and the dense forests of the Pacific Northwest? With countless reports spanning decades, from the rugged mountains of Washington, Oregon, and British Columbia to the remote bushlands of Queensland and Victoria, the mystery only deepens. Thanks for visiting.